Mega Man 8, aka Rockman 8 Metal Heroes in Japan, is an uncontested peak of the classic Mega Man series, and arguably Capcom's back catalog of games in its entirety. Releasing initially on the PlayStation 1 in 1996, with its further worldwide release and Sega Saturn port coming the following year, not to be confused with its predecessor Mega Man 7, nor its sequel, Mega Man 9, and quite literally one of the most sobering video games I've yet played. Between the ingenious visual design and a near-perfect soundtrack is a rather underrated gem. A sight to behold not only for fans of Mega Man, but just as much to anyone who values retro games at all. And before we jump in completely, as a few quick notes, consider this more of a long-winded recommendation rather than a full-blown review. I'm likely to gloss over certain aspects that others more well-versed in Mega Man would more easily be able to speak on and point out. I'll also only be covering the PS1 version of the game, so none of the Sega Saturn exclusive content like the Cutman or Woodman fights will be covered here. Now, allow me to relay to you why exactly I believe Mega Man 8 is peak. The most apparent thing about Mega Man 8 is its adherence to style. The color palettes bring out an unreal aura, from character, enemy, and boss sprites to particle effects and the similarly small stuff. Practically everything has this fullness to it that's irresistible to the human eye. Even as you take in one asset and fully begin to appreciate it, there's certain to be another detail in the background or foreground that'll grab you just the same, naturally lending itself to be replayed just for the sake of the visuals. It is a video game we're talking about after all. Consider being in the position of not having played one of the prior Mega Man games on the NES, then approaching this one as your first in the series, and it's perfectly reasonable for one to fall in line with the energy the classic Mega Man aesthetic wants to put out. That's pretty close to what actually happened to me. That was pretty much my position before playing this game, as I glimpsed the Wily levels in Mega Man 2 specifically, but never completed the game outright. I'd go as far as to say Mega Man 8 does such a good job at selling the player on its fantasy and vibe that it really can act as an introduction to the broader franchise as a whole, classic or otherwise. Miscellaneous effects and stage backgrounds alike have a lot of depth to them, quite literally, with practically every grunt enemy in between remaining crisp and iconic even as they get reused. That core essence derived from the works of Shotaro Ishinomori, Osamu Tezuka, and the further influence from the broader tokusatsu genre of Japanese television is arguably more apparent than ever. And it helps that these key enemies are as well animated as they are. Same goes for Rock in each of his iterative powered-up forms. Probably goes without saying that the robot masters of this game have similarly exquisite appearances, with some of them being unarguably iconic Mega Man characters just working off of these designs alone. But of course, what can I say that these cutscenes can't say for themselves?
Mega Man, today we finish this!
Hey, Zack! Why must I fight you? We are not enemies!
Shut up!
I'm almost finished. The battery will be charged in 10 minutes.
That's good. By the way, what do you make of these?
These? Seems to be energy resources. But I've never seen this type on Earth. I don't know where this energy came from, but I cannot let it fall into Dr. Wily's hands. You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
It's quite difficult to imagine any other dialogue in place of the English dubbing once you've heard it, but I'm sure the original Japanese with subtitles would feel good in its own way. It's just too funny and altogether weirdly fitting. I know many of us have seen otherwise crude or strange dub work in real anime before, so it has to be said that this does well to encapsulate that sort of energy, especially when considering this was far from the only game at the time with a similarly odd-sounding voice cast. It is a rather typical outing in the broader narrative of Mega Man, but with the introduction of a new protagonist robot in Duo, as well as the cementing of many staples of Rockman up to that point. In the very first cutscene, New Guy Duo crashes into a shadowy purple robot who continues to go unnamed for the entire game, literally cracking open a planet in the process. The two dueling bots and the ensuing debris scatter and fall to Earth, providing the inciting incident for our game. Just as soon as we see that happen, though, we come to see Rock and Bass, aka Forte, duking it out in an open city space. But before Forte can even begin to put up a real fight, Rock receives transmission from Dr. Light that assistance is needed at the site of a crash landing, leading us directly into our first level. And a damn fine first level it is. Not to mention the introduction of the Mega Ball and its weirdly satisfying use as a glorified bomb you can literally kick around and have bounce off the walls into enemies. Not only does it function as a great first weapon unlock, but it very clearly demonstrates the intended use of these things as deterrents against bosses, as well as giving the player just enough space to find its use during the run and gun segments preceding those Robot Masters. The best thing about Mega Man 8 after the graphical presentation is easily the soundtrack. Even more than the cutscenes, the music injects an unreal amount of emotion into this game. This is something that the legacy of Mega Man has done well to keep known and talked about, but it's still too good to be ignored even slightly. That groovy-ass stage select song was literally one of the few things I even kind of knew about before jumping into the game properly, because it is that good. It is that good. Another major positive for Mega Man 8 is its difficulty. Despite retaining the classical live, die, repeat game logic, where you almost certainly will have to fail several times over in order to succeed, it's still approachable. Not to say that the game doesn't have the player go through more challenging scenarios, because it absolutely does, but it's not nearly as outright bullshit as prior entries in the series. The upgrade shop plays a big part in this too, as its inclusion of Buster and Charge Shot variants adds a practical incentive to players who'd not normally gather all collectibles on stage. The piercing laser shot was of great use to me on an initial playthrough, and despite a few stinkers, most of the weapon upgrades feel worth getting and experimenting with. Other buys are just straight up boost in stats to better weather the storm. Extra lives on stage start are especially helpful and feels like something that's earned rather than given. Some of the collectible bolts are quite simple to find, and in fact some of the bolts are just given to you. But a large chunk are definitely out of the way and will require a replay to snag. To keep it simple, in order of best to worst, this is how I'd rank the Robot Masters as purely bosses. Tengu Man, Grenade Man, Sword Man, Frost Man, Search Man, Astro Man, Clown Man, and finally Aquaman. In particular, the fights with Tengu Man and Grenade Man each feel like real battles that have been balanced in favor of being engaging skirmishes, opposed to the kind of fights you get with Clown Man, who very much requires Tengu Man's weapon, the Tornado Hold, to circumvent taking unavoidable damage and effectively beat him at all. On paper, that sounds just fine, and like any other boss battle. But the discrepancies are laid bare once you try fighting with just the Mega Buster or simply without the intended unlock. Alternatively, the weapon buff can in itself be the thing that hinders the fight, rather than the balancing found therein. Where with Clown Man you can only get the best hits off with the proper unlock so as to fight him on equal footing, Aquaman's weakness in the weapon, the Astro Crush, is so ahead of the curve it's not even funny. The fight's over before it even really starts. All of that considered, most of the boss fights are still fun to play through, and every level leading into them is of high regard. Even the arbitrarily confusing puzzle box of Astro Man stage is enticing and honestly a surprisingly good fit in place of a more unoriginal space-themed area like you'd see in a contemporary title. I'd say insofar as stages themselves are concerned, I could easily put Tengu Man and Sword Man's levels above the rest, although they are pretty close in terms of overall quality, if you ask me. After reaching the halfway point, we finally get our one and only contest against the aforementioned duo, and as cool as it is, it's practically a walk in the park compared to what's up ahead. It's also quite interesting how he lacks a health meter, and even more interesting is Duo's heavy resemblance to a very particular character during this fight. Maybe it's just me being more familiar with the X games, but they're definitely alike, intentional or not. This is also the point the game starts to make an explicit effort to force the player into using the weapons given out by the first 4 Robot Masters in order to traverse and complete the respective stages of the final 4. The Thunderclaw as a hookshot, and the Tornado Hold as a temporary elevator of sorts being the most obviously applicable use cases. It's not groundbreaking, but it is really fun to see these smaller pieces of the environment and immediately begin to break down in your head which weapon you ought to use. Just as the last half of proper stages weaned the player onto more intensive game mechanics, the Wily section of this game seamlessly reintroduces both the snowboarding and side-scrolling shooter segments from the first half. The gimmicked vehicle stages were more enjoyable on a first go-around as proper Robot Master stages. But I do personally enjoy these levels a lot, frustrating as they may be during that hellish last stretch. Time for my least favorite section of the game, the obligatory boss rush. Just as you think you're about to waltz on into the final boss stage, the game decides to test your might using one of the several tropes this series seems to be utterly incapable of getting away from. The bosses are much more fun to fight on their own terms. I do like the idea of Dr. Wily scrambling to his stupid pod in fear of Mega Man and throwing together hastily made clones of the Robot Masters just to create that much more distance between himself and Rock. But in execution as an actual playable stage, quite frankly, it's obnoxious. And it even further displays the disparity in quality between some of these guys as boss fights. Again, it really is a cool idea, and I understand its tradition, so to speak, but I'm certain a more creative and altogether more playable scenario could have been implemented to thoroughly skill check the player at this point. One further and slightly notable issue I ran into while trying to get footage for this video was the lack of a real New Game Plus function or a Wily stage select of any kind. Now that might not sound like such a big issue, but the nature of the first two Wily stages as repetitions of prior gimmicks, on top of housing easily the two worst bosses in the game, makes getting to the base or Wily fights as much of a pain as it was on your first time through. Speaking of the aforementioned base,
Come on, Treble!
not only does this fight have one of the coolest transformations in the series, being shown off in the treble combined and boosted super bass, but it's the soundtrack here that is to die for. We're also left with the funniest unvoiced line of dialogue in the game. Bass, why you don't understand. Certified modern gamer moment. I absolutely had to use save states as I progressed through the final stages of the Wily area. No real shame in admitting it, but I know I have to, for the sake of gamer cred. The two phases of Wily are absolutely fantastic in terms of design, no real surprise there, and I'd say the same goes for the interiors and majorly just the level design of everything leading up to this point. Everything takes on an intentionally more industrial appearance and slightly darker tone. The colors are sometimes exceedingly warm and dry in comparison to the more truly vibrant color choices throughout prior levels. The first Wily phase is actually really well structured, but it throws everything and the kitchen sink at you as a final test. It's tough, but it's fun. The problem with Wily's second phase is its randomness. And although I'm sure there's some gamer psychics out there who've played through the fight without breaking a sweat, I found it to be nearly as annoying as the boss rush in the end. Despite the pretty colors and sweet sounds, it's still a tad bullshit. But it would be disingenuous to act as if the game doesn't deserve that difficulty. The mechanics you've come to learn up to this point have specifically been accumulating towards completing these Wily stages. And whether or not I'm at all good enough at the game doesn't actively detract from that raw experience had. And to add to that experience, just before all is said and done, you're treated to a rather touching encounter between the departing duo and a wounded Mega Man, having our intergalactic-bound friend highlight just how truly dependable and necessary of a hero Rock is.
Mega Man, I can see into your mind.
And before I let you go completely, there's a final bit of trivia pertaining to Mega Man as a whole that I found kind of fascinating. Luckily, the game thought so too. During the initial segment of the end credits, we're introduced to the Dr. Wily Prize recipients. 8 extremely lucky Japanese fans of the game series were awarded with their own original designs being lifted from the page and put into the game. The thing that shocked me most was that this was going on from a very early point in Rockman's history as a franchise. Every classic game from 2 to 8 has designs submitted by fans that act as proper robot masters in-game. Some might find that trite, but I thought it was pretty cool. They just don't do shit like that anymore. Thank you for watching. I don't fucking know what to say at this point. Well, I hope you want to play Mega Man 8 now, at least. I don't really know what else the intent behind this video would be, if not to convince people to play this damn game. It is really fantastic. I plan on covering the remaining PlayStation Mega Man games, at least. If you enjoyed listening to my waffling about a game I didn't even grow up playing, and just found, I didn't find it on a whim, but I did play it on a whim, more or less. Then, throw me your 2 cents. Let me know. Yeah, let me know if anything. Is this video shit? Is it really good? I don't know. But you're gonna have to tell me, because you're at the end of it. Because this is presumably at the end of a video I'm recording for. But definitely more Mega Man shit gonna be happening. The damn channel's got robot in the name. Maybe that clued you in a little bit. Yeah. I mean, any sort of input is welcome. Any critique, anything. I really just want to talk about games. I'd rather keep the channel more positive and talk about shit I like, and maybe do more critical anime reviews in the future. I'd really like to do that, but that's gonna take a lot more time. I'm gonna need to make sure people at least give a fuck about what I'm saying before I do anything like that. But for real, if you've made it to the end of the video, thank you kindly. Yeah, please stick around. Subscribe if you feel like it. Leave a like if you actually liked the video. That's all. Please try Mega Man 8, and I'll talk to you fucking later, probably.